factor, especially leading on to a map like sub-level, like you said. And I think for that team, for All Yeah specifically, they've been making their way back through this lower bracket, like we said, but they dropped down early, obviously losing to Twisted Minds earlier, who I guess has been no slouch of their own. Right, I mean, we have at the same time Twisted Minds now in that upper bracket finals, fell down, oh yeah, but won against Choose Money Crew, and now we're against Sovereigns. So now that we know that Twisted Minds were such a good team and they only lost to them earlier, I don't think oh yeah are as bad as it might seem they are being in this lower bracket.
Yeah, I think this one's potentially going to be pretty close to call, and if you want to call it, don't forget to drop your predictions in chat. 1 for Sovereigns and 2 if you want to support oh yeah. As we can have a look at how exactly these teams are going to be coming in. There's the Junkrat, there's the Genji that we expected. Chasm does look like he's going to be locking in that Reinhardt. They're not going to be running the Mei alongside it. There it is, I was going to say. The ball swap is going to come through. It's going to be a little bit harder to pull off if Sovereigns are able to reside up on that high ground, so that Melio is able to just try and shoot into the backline of the team. But if you're able to take the fight into the open space of the point itself and set some of those pile drives up, Kyra and Necros are going to get a lot of damage set up.
Yeah, Necros on that Genji, by the way, which is a bit of an uncommon pick. Same with the Junkrat. So towards this backside, the Zenyatta sits with the team of oh yeah, as they're kind of clumped together, which is kind of not what you want for this team. But against Junkrat, I mean, it's understandable why they want to just play back, bait them into Kaya on the J. Raddington. But Sovereign kind of just playing it slow the backside. Actually, Necros with the fall through of Chasm. Nice dive from them onto Buddy to take him out, even though get hit by the anti-grenade. It's not enough to stop Necros, who was just dashing around. The trap came through, lands on the Jakaro. Natwalks does trade back to Isaac, but that's only 1 kill. And oh yeah, they did lose the point temporarily, but now they've gained it back.
See, oh yeah are playing this Hammond as we're getting a little bit of a pause. We can sort of lead into how that played out a little bit longer. Right, they're playing this Hammond composition with the Genji and the Junkrat the way that you would see something like a Tracer playing off, or even a Sojourn at this point, off of a Hammond coming in with those pile drives. You're displacing a character, you're pushing them up into the air, you know that they're going to be locked into that position. The pile drive is the setup. The true finisher, Mortal Kombat style, is the Genji. Dashing in, getting those shurikens to connect, coming in with that melee as well on the end of it. And Necros is known for being able to use that Genji tech, right? I'm sure we've all seen the montages just watching the things that this guy can do with the Genji. There's a reason that Oya are at tier 2, even when they're really playing heroes that are not favored by meta because of all of the changes that they've gone through.
Yeah, and you got to be decisive, like you mentioned, versus a team like, oh yeah, otherwise they're just going to run on your face, just like Necros did, like you said. And for Sovereigns, they were set up, they were ready for a dive, but they just did not do it, and it resulted in Buddy getting dove on by, oh yeah, immediately, like you said, capitalizing off of that situation where they were ready to dive, but they just unfortunately hesitated for a little bit too long, maybe because they saw Kaya sitting there in the back line. That's why Kaya is DC'd right now, because of the fact, by the way, yeah, we have a little pause with Kaya DCing, maybe because of the fact that he's so terrifying, they just wanted to send him out of the lobby. But at the same time, oh yeah, perfect dive, great on them to get ready for that engagement, and it resulted in them winning the fight. Yeah, they gave up 10%, yeah, they gave up the point originally, but it's kind of like a little bait and switch, right? They have Kaya sitting back, spamming, so you don't really want to go in, but the moment you hesitate and you get too close, then you're dove on by that Wrecking Ball, Zenyatta, Discord, and Genji dive.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, they gave up that point so they could just prioritize the positioning, knowing that if they have that positioning, that Zen is going to be pretty untouchable. Like you mentioned, Kyra is sitting in the backline, just spamming away into that side lane, and as a result, Melio is actually having to back away. You'll actually notice when the Ana is the one getting pile drived up into the air, the Cassidy is mid-retreat. He's backstepping away to grab one of those health packs because of the spam damage that the Junkrat has done to him. As a result, the Magnate isn't there to dissuade the Hammond, and the Ana is the one that gets to be targeted. This is going to be something that Sovereigns have to keep a watchful eye on, because if they leave the Ana alone a little bit too much, Oya have the mobility to immediately be able to capitalize.
And now coming versus, oh yeah, Sovereigns has to deal with the Junkrat spam as well. I mean, that's potential potential for there, or at least, you know, you got a lot of cooldowns that are going to be forced out from this Junkrat. Kaya already back in the fight now. Sovereign towards the point, setting up this dive. The kid's kind of setting up on this backside, ready to dive that Zen, but he's immediately poked out by Necros. Incoming that wrecking ball towards the point. Chasm rolls around this backside. The mines are just landing all around this point. Here comes Chasm around this backside. They mark up the Zen, so they see the dive. Kaya taking out low. Melio's the one to find that, and a nice sleep dart on the Chasm on the back line, and they have to fall through damage to potentially kill him, but no, wrecking ball is too tanky. However, Sovereign do capture that point.
Yeah, they've been able to find that flip. The pile drive attempt is there at a re-engagement, and as a result, it actually knocks Nuzlocke into the Junkrat trap. And now Oya think that they can turn this around. They don't have to worry about the Lucio. They can just drop the Ant Matrix, and Sovereigns don't have the means to be able to disengage without losing more players.
Yeah, they're still juggling around the point. They do lose Buddy earlier. Now comes that dive. Jakaru trying to build that Primal Rage, has built it. Pulse Bomb comes out, forces that lamp. The kids has to recall. The trap already out of there. Maybe he could throw down another one, but Necros has that blade ready to go. They're trying to peel out this Winston, but they can't save Isaac. Isaac had the Transcendence, refused to pop it. The point is not even flipped yet. It's so close to doing so. Somebody has to get off this point. They got to kill a target focus on this point. They do get Nat locks, but guess who's back? It's Jakaru, who has that Nano Boost. Does get Kaya, but the sleep dart yet again onto Necros, who was blading the back line. Nice sleep dart from Buddy, and Jakaru still on this point, keeping it in the favor of Sovereign the entire time, and that sleep dart is going to lead to Sovereign continuing this point reign.
This is the drawback of the composition that Oya are running. If they don't have 5 players focusing on one target, they don't have the damage burst potential to be able to find those picks. And as a result, Sovereigns, they keep winning the fight, but they keep winning the point percentage game as well. They're able to keep it at 83%, and we're heading into final fight territory. Oya don't have a blade, they just use the hammer mine. It's their best tool at being able to clear Sovereigns off of the point. Now they have to buy time with an Ant Matrix.
Sleep dart comes out on the Chasm yet again. He tried to go a little bit too deep. Akaya's the one to find Jakaru the Transcendence to just give Chasm some HP there. Now has to back up out of there, but he's going to immediately be focused by this Tracer. However, Isaac is the one to find Natlock on this backside, so it pushes them away. And oh yeah, they have some ultimates for next fight. Sovereign going to have to reset here.
Yeah, good stagger onto your kids, just trying to buy as much time as possible. Jakaru getting a little bit of damage to connect onto Chasm, but not really getting the cleave necessary to build up into that Primal. Oh yeah, are going to have the Tire. They're not running the Baptiste, so it is going to be relying on the DPS to be able to burn through it to guarantee that it doesn't find a pick, as if you use Sign Barrier too soon, you're potentially going to fall to the Ant Matrix and the damage that comes up afterwards. There's the Junkrat Tire just looking around those walls, not wanting to get taken down by those cash shots before the fight properly starts. And it might not be able to find a pick because, yeah, the disengage from Sovereigns is good. They all pull back a little bit closer to that spawn, and the Tire gets shot down.
Now, I like this map. They're just playing back towards the engagement that is surely going to come for Sovereign, so they're just ready to disengage Jakaru's dive. Maybe they can kill him fast, but the beat drop is here. Jakaru has to build that Primal Rage, has the Nano Boost, built that Primal Rage. The anti-grenade came through, and that gets rid of Isaac, and so does Cool Boy to fall. Nice re-engage from Sovereigns with that, honestly, ultimate advantage they had. Now we'll flip this point as they clear the Wrecking Ball mines out of their Chasm. Does come back for the delay. Kaya switched to Tracer, but they can't touch, and Sovereigns are going to be up 1 round.
Jakaru is just doing such a good job as well on this Winston, going in with the Primal Rage to disrupt any of the target focus that Oya are looking to set up. Even able to just keep using the ultimate through the Ant Matrix as well, but this is the point that Oya were hoping would crop up. This is sub-level. This is where the Junkrat is going to really be able to push Sovereigns to the brink when it comes to positioning.
I feel like, oh yeah, Moxie, or like that team with Necros, where it's like, you know, this is some, it's like that copy pasta, where it's like, this is some good, clean Overwatch here. None of that Zarya bubble in, defensive matrix in meta. You know, we got Necros diving in. He has no support at all. That's some good, clean, fair Overwatch, baby.
You know what's really ironic is that Oya used to just run Zarya as their tank.
Yeah, that was great. That's so hard to deal with, the double bubble.
But well, it's not going to be double bubble, it's going to be single bubble, as Jakaru is holding on to this Winston. Again, just taking a lot of damage from the Junkrat. Sovereign's not able to look for that brawl on the high ground because the Junkrat is in play. And again, we see, oh yeah, when they have that target focus, when they have that space of all 5 players able to work together, they're able to find the pick. Where it falls apart is where Sovereigns are able to group up and disrupt this composition focus.
Yeah, now your kids has to come down. That was a nice opening pick with those Disco Orbs. Nade comes out. Now support is needed for Buddy to stay alive in this backside, and there's so much space just given to Isaac here on this top side. Chasm goes for the health pack, and now your kid's just looking for this backline. The dive comes through the bubble to zone, but he still has that pocket. However, Melio is there, and that's that third DPS that they needed to actually take care of that backline. So now, without that backline, Anya are surely going to crumble. Necros did find Buddy, but that's just one kill, and found Natlocks. Kaya found your kids. Who needs supports? Who freaking needs supports if you get a zone out on this point? But Melio and Jakaru find Kaya and Necros, so they do clean it out and capture that point to give them that percentage tick.
They are able to stagger it out and stall to 30%, and Necros, with the damage that he's able to do, is able to build pretty close to that blade. But you remember the last time was able to sleep it immediately, as we are going to see a Winston get nano boosted immediately forward to push and cleave into those little small spaces that we are looking to take advantage from, building up into that primal so that when the blade comes out, they're going to be able to use the Winston or even the Deadeye to be able to zone it away.
And there's so much cover and flank angles on this map. Oh! The Transcendence bringing the magnetic grenade to his face, so he did self-damage. Now Necros with the blade gets the 2K. Buddy misses the sleep dart, but forces that Primal Rage. Jakaru wants to kill, but Necros gets the health pack as well, so now he has to run from the Primal Rage. Gets the orb, dashes away, plays for his own life. Jakaru's looking for some value and finds it onto Isaac as well, but now he's back on the point with no cooldowns, but does have some peel from his support and his backline, which Melio is doing a great job back in this fight, hitting shot after shot. Pressures back, oh yeah, and reclaims that point.
Now, this is the difference maker, by the way. Sovereign's still holding onto that point all the way through that fight because JKR is able to come in with that primal and keep it contested from Oya, even though two players go down to that blade coming out from Necros, and Melio getting to come back in with the distance that the Casti is afforded with the 25 meters increase as opposed to the 20. Means Oya are too pressured. They can't actually try and find that stall and flip and look to pressure out the remaining players of Sovereigns on that point. And now they have to reset and try and open up this next fight with a tire.
Tire comes out now from the top angle. Everybody's ready to disengage it though. Sovereign's just giving up this point entirely. They already dropped the mines. It's taken out by Melio, and I mean they have some tick percentage to give up, right, Moxie? I mean 35 to 91. You got some room to work with.
Yeah, oh yeah, having to use two of their ultimates, the only things that they had available to be able to keep this point in play and further zone Sovereigns away, so that they're going to have positions to be able to potentially hide from the Deadeye, as a nano boosted Winston again makes the first move, pulls out the lamp almost immediately and gets the follow-up to connect onto the Zenyatta. Kaya and Necros once again have gone for that counter dive of just trying to push into Sovereign's back line, but without the Zenyatta, that Discord Orb is going to be lacking a lot of healing removed for the Genji as well, and Natlocks with the Soundware just has to sustain to keep Sovereigns in play.
Kaya, but Natlocks does trade it back. I mean, it's 1 for 1, but at the same time, they're still trying to win this fight, Sovereigns is. However, oh yeah, they want this to be messy, right? They lost their backline already. They don't really care too much if they just lose that back, or if they lose a little bit more, but that pulse bomb comes out. Oh my god, it did get lamped, but Chasm rolled out of the lamp to pulse bomb your kids to counter it. However, your kids does get traded out on the backside. Point flips back for Sovereigns. However, Isaac does get Melio. However, Jakaru decides to pop that Primal Rage. He wants that backline, finds Cool Boy again. The point goes into overtime now. Can anybody touch? Yes, it's Chasm to touch. Transcendence comes out to survive from Jakaru. Jakaru has to jump back, has the Discord on him, still has some pocket and heals. Isaac couldn't get far away. He's dead. Necro is forced to use the blade, but the rollout happens from Natlocks to save him from that blade. The slam comes out from Chasm. They eventually find Jakaru. Kaya back on the Torbjorn falls, and it's just the Torbjorn turret to stall, and it can't touch that point, so Sovereign are gonna win on Antarctic Peninsula.
It's that target focus coming out from Sovereigns onto the backline. They identified that the Zenyatta might not be the weak link in terms of damage that he's able to output, but he's the most vulnerable. You even saw the attempts at the snap kicks coming on through to try and push the dive that came out from Jakaru out of the way so that the Winston isn't able to land as much of the Tesla cannon, just poke away at the Zen. But unfortunately for Oya, every single time, even though Necros and Kai, when they were going into the backline to push onto Buddy on this Ana, were able to find the kills without the Hammond being there to help the setup, it took too long. And so they would be able to find the backline, but the Lucio would still be able to evade them. And Sovereigns would be able to stall their way, even survive on that point for far too long.
What a close sleep dart there from Buddy as well. But yeah, I mean, this is some very, very fun and interesting Overwatch, Moxie. I mean, I know that there's some famous quotes from like content creators in this game, such as ML7, who have said, you know, to play heroes during an off meta, it's always rough. It's always a great learning experience, right? Because you're always playing these heroes, you know, in situations where they're not really that good. So you need to maximize your hero at every situation. And Necros and Kaya had done that consistently. Chasm as well, and that's kind of led to them being able to play such a crazy variation of Overwatch. And Sovereign, yes, they're the ones to come out on top. However, oh yeah, they're putting up a fight, right? They're maximizing at all costs, and now they pick King's Row for Sovereign. That could throw them off here potentially with the Genji coming out again.
Yeah, especially because as well as like King's Row being Oya's map pick, it also means that the points and the fights that they take are going to be a lot wider, right? Because you look at sub-level and then you compare it to that first map of Labs. Look at the movement that Chasm was able to find on both maps on that Hammond. Lab is a lot more open. There's a lot more space for the hamster to be able to roll through, as opposed to sub-level, because you're taking those fights in close spaces to better prop up your Junkrat spam damage. You're eating into the mobility of your tank to be able to set up things like that Genji dash finisher. And that had a significant impact. You could even actually see Sovereigns were making the decision to actively take those fights in the enclosed spaces, knowing that they only have to worry about the Junkrat spam damage and they have the burst healing with the Ana. Even better, allowing them to build up that nano, as opposed to taking the fights on the point for the majority of the time and playing into the ball setup that's there for the other side.
It's such a unique map, and leading into King's Row, like you mentioned, I mean, this is a solid map for Kaya and all, yeah, right? You got Junkrat. Junkrat's known on first point King's Row defense for always being a menace, right? You always have that spam to the hotel side, always have to deal with that disengage. Now, if Sovereign deal with it, though, if they manage to shut out Kaya and all, yeah, here on King's Row, I mean, that is borderline curtains for Team Aw Yeah. So really, this is the map they have to win coming to King's Row. The onus is on them to bring it to Sovereigns, because Sovereigns has been playing well. They did a good job disengaging some of the tires from Aw Yeah, and just disengaging where most teams, maybe their ego comes in the way and they just want to keep trying to go even against the Riptire. But they've been playing well. I mean, shout out to Sovereigns for playing as well as they have versus Kaya and Aw Yeah.
I think a part of it as well is the transferable skills that a lot of these players with experience from last year's contenders have picked up moving ahead, right? You think about Kitsune Rush and the fact that you had to have all 5 of your players, if you didn't have a counter rush, disengage cleanly and quickly, and you can actually see how they applied that to dealing with the Junkrat tires. It was essentially the same route that the team took as if they were dealing with one of those rushes. But because they have that practice, that experience, the disengagement is extraordinarily clean. As opposed to if you didn't have that experience going up against some of those rushes, you might still leave a player behind and find that tire actually taking some damage. And I think that's one of the problems with Oh Yeah. And this is something that they've struggled with for the entirety of their run through contenders when they've had this roster, is that even when we go to different maps, you're still going to be running the same composition. So if teams have already shown that they can adapt around what is going to be picked from their opponents, it's just going to be different scenery. It's the same solutions that Oya are looking for. Solutions that you've already solved. It's kind of like you're coming into all of these matches and taking a test, but you already know all of the answers.
That's a very good point. Yeah, Overwatch is always ever changing. However, things are, familiar. If you played the game, the veterancy comes into play, and especially, obviously in these Pro-Am qualifiers, Mox, we have so many teams that we've talked to. We're like, yeah, we just picked up this tank player because he was good on ranked ladder, and he's like a brand new player, never played Overwatch before Overwatch 2, and you're like, what? Where did this guy come from? But it's there's so many new players as well leading into this that maybe they haven't had that experience. However, Sovereign, like you mentioned, playing those separate metas, understanding what to do versus Kitsune Rush, very similar. You have to deal with the Riptire, and on King's Row, they have to deal with it again. So on the attacking side as well. So now, they chose defense first as well. I imagine Sovereign chose attacking side first, and I'm sure they're fine to be in this position on defense first.
Yeah, Sovereigns do look like they're going to be playing into that Reinhardt, or rather maybe even going for the Winston. I mean, your kids is on the Bastion, I would expect. If they are going to run the Bastion, it's going to be the Rein, but your kids are actually going to swap onto the Tracer. that they can continue to go with this
Echo.
dive. They've seen that it works so well, and now they're doubling down. Nelio's even, like you said, going to go onto that Echo. And Oya, as a result, have to take cover in Hotel to make it even harder for the dive to find the backline.
Chasm to the top side. Tracer already towards the point as well. Cool Boy almost has to use that lamp. Actually decides to opts to use it towards that backline. So Lamp already out of this fight. Necros looking for the backline. Milio already forced to get out of his fly. Chasm kind of just getting poked now, but Jakaru doing a good job opening up space until that Discord Orb comes into play. Necros pumping in that damage with the right clicks on Genji. Now dashes into the main side. Buddy is already getting dove on as well. Kaya does trade back to Kids, and Milio gets Necros. However, Buddy eventually falls, and that's already one solid hold for Oya.
Yeah, there's a reason that Oya felt comfortable taking us to King's Row. And like you said, the spam damage that's going to be coming through from this team is going to be absolutely gross. Kaya on that Junkrat, but also Isaac coming out on that Zenyatta. You could already see when the Discord Orbs connected onto Sovereigns, it immediately almost resulted in a death every single time.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to come back into this point. Necros' damage is kind of surprising. It kind of creeps up on you. I imagine Jakaru on that last map, I guess, he had a lot more cover. I think that's something I noticed about Antarctic Peninsula is there's so much cover. Yet, like you mentioned, it's very open. There's a lot of space to move around. But it seems like the developers have put a ton of cover everywhere. So that kind of allowed Jakaru the mobility and the positioning to just keep moving around different buildings and structures to play his life. However, on King's Row, once you dive to that point, there's nowhere to go once you use that bubble cooldown. And Necros, he's still Genji that pumps out a lot of damage. It's not as broken as it used to be, but he still does quite a bit of damage with his right click.
Yeah, and again, they have that disengagement down to make sure that this then doesn't die to that initial dive impact. You're still getting to spam a couple of volleys, but the second you actually see that Winston show himself, you can see Isaac just pulling a little bit further back, making it even harder for Sovereigns to approach him.
Here comes your Kids over the top side. Already sees Isaac, but Necros is the one to find that opening pick. No lamp in time as well. The dive comes through. Cool Boy has to use his self-sustaining abilities as his team leaves him in the dust, but it works out for them almost because Natlox and Buddy are both dead. So now we got a 2v2 on the point. Necros is dove upon by Jakaru. He dashes away as well. A 3v2 rather on this point. Now the spawns are in favor of Sovereigns because they have those closed spawn doors. Oh yeah, realize that. They back up, wait for the supports, and I'm sure they're going to get re-engage with this Baptiste window.
Yeah, they do have Amp Matrix, but Sovereigns again are playing extremely mobile heroes, so they can just try and back on out of it. Chasm coming with the Hammer Mines, however, is more of a problem. They're going to entirely blanket out that point and stop Sovereigns from being able to hold their way onto it. This is when the regroup comes through and full from Oya.
I'm surprised that Jakaru didn't want to use that Primal Rage to get on that backline, but they do commit those mines. They do commit that Amp Matrix as well. And Sovereign, they really haven't had, they didn't really use much there. Leading this next fight, they're going to have 4 ultimates against Oya's 3. And Oya, I imagine they want to go aggressive with this blade, but they're going to watch out for Natlox's beat drop.
I mean, Oya are definitely going to want to go aggressive. They are going to have to watch out not just for the beat drop, but also the sleep dart and the Primal Rage coming through from Jakaru. Sovereigns have already shown themselves to be very adept at dealing with the blade. There's the blade. The attempt at the sleep is not going to connect onto the Genji. And as a result, Sound Barrier comes on through and Nano Boost onto the Winston. So Oya aren't even able to take advantage of the space that the Genji should have created. However, the tire comes up clutch. It takes the Echo out of the way and Oya can finally start to push on back.
Yeah, Necros is unfortunately taken out by Jakaru. Kaya has to give up this point to Jakaru, who used his bubble, has another jump available. However, the trap is gone as well. Chasm just trying to touch, make sure they don't give up this point. Does have the shields, no supports here just yet, and not a lot of team help, but they do have that lamp. Chasm is getting the heals. Can anybody else touch? Chasm is the one to fall. Nope, they can't touch anymore, and finally, you lose that first point, but it's not too bad if they can avoid getting snowballed here.
Yeah, really good bubble actually from Jakaru. Blankets out that choke connecting onto the point, so the line of sight for Chasm is cut off from his healers, and he actually has to try and book it towards Statue to grab a health back. He was 4% away from getting mines on point, and we were about to hit overtime. Sovereigns had used all of their ultimates available, so being able to block that Hammond out, forcing him not just off the point, but also to going down, allowed Sovereigns to pick up that point and not have to worry about dealing with the Hammer Mines and potentially being full held on King's Row. Now they have a little bit more time. They've got a duplicate coming into this next fight, and Oya don't have choke control. What they do still have is those Hammond Mines, however. And Sovereigns are now going to try and bait it out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, now Kaya towards the front side of this pub, just looking for that damage output that he surely is going to pump out. And a slam comes through already from Milio, who goes for the swap to the wrecking ball. Kaya does trade out Natlocks in the back line, so it is another kill in favor of All Yeah, as Milio tries to reset and play his life. Doesn't have a lot of heals in the front line because they are down. Natlocks still barely just alive. Eventually falls the Cool Boy, and another hold for All Yeah. They're stopping that snowball so far.
They've got amplification matrix as well, so if they turn Sovereigns back into that choke, but they don't actually have the lamp available to save Chasm from the pulse bomb, and as a result, the pushback that should have been there for Sovereigns is turned against Oh Yeah. Without the Hammond, there's no mines to stop Sovereigns from moving forward. They're even nano boosting your kids on this Tracer to keep this backline bullied away so they can get another pick onto the Junkrat.
Well, it's working out so far for Sovereign, even though that last fight was a little bit dicey. Oh yeah, have a lot of ultimates. They commit the window. Jakaru's coming in with that Primal Rage. Now Isaac dies with the Transcendence. The kids in that backline of the sleep came down on the Chasms as well. Now Sovereigns, all they have to do is disengage, kill Chasm, kill that backline, and even with some ultimates, Jakaru just stopped everything All Yeah could do on that re-engage.
Yeah, that Primal really is no joke when it comes to displacing these Tracers. And these players. Oh yeah, is just not able to use that opportunity to use the Transcendence because they don't know if they're actually going to be able to be in radius of it to get healed. As a result, Sovereigns are able to pick up point B. They've bought themselves the time to build into that sound barrier. Kids with the double blink gets on top of the high ground and forces Oh Yeah back, and what should have been an opening for Oh Yeah to hold over Sovereign's head becomes your kids, pushing them right 6 feet down into their spawn. This payload is not slowing down anytime soon, Dustin.
Oh yeah, gotta commit some ultimates or just do a better job regrouping. They keep going a little bit in too aggressive a position because Sovereigns, they're ready to dive it. I mean, Jakaru is always in a go moment. That's why he's one of the best Winstons in Europe. Gets that nano boost. They still want to keep going forward. Yep. The nade comes out. Perfect anti-grenade nano boost play. They get Kaya, kill him through the Transcendence. Jakaru is still going to stay alive, even with the Discord orb on him because of the damage reduction from the nano boost. Emilio goes for the copy onto the Genji. Now they dive early yet again into Isaac. He's taken out. Pop that copy. Blade loses the copy. However, Chasm has to come out, drop the mines on the point, even though he loses his life. Tyre is taken out as well. Chasm, however, did get Natlocks with the mines. Can anybody even touch in time now for Oh Yeah? The point continues to keep getting pushed in. Your kids does get killed, however, on Sovereign's side. However, Jakaru is still on this point. Gets rid of Isaac. Cool Boy gets rid of Jakaru as well. So Oh Yeah, somehow they've stopped Sovereign's push.
Yeah, the hold comes out from Oh Yeah. Cool Boy actually swapping onto the Ana to be able to land the sleep onto Jakaru, as well as push some of those anti-nades and punish Sovereign's aggression. It does mean they're going to have a nano booster as well to try and make sure that Chasm is able to keep himself in this fight a little bit more aggressively, or potentially even used to save a player, as your kids does have a pulse bomb. Isaac is off the Zen onto that Baptiste, so they're going to have a lamp to be able to try to keep themselves alive through it as well. As your kids look for a flank angle, gets the intel of where Necros is holding from, but he's not looking for the Genji. He's looking for the back line. Lamp's already been burnt out, and Kaya makes the move onto Buddy.
And Isaac's already dead too, so is Cool Boy. Chasm does trade back Natlock, so they do have at least one more member in this fight. Necros dashes into Milio, but does get taken up with the sniper shot from Jakaru. That Winston aim coming into factor today. Kaya on this flank does have the health pack to play around, but he already grabbed it, now dove upon. Doesn't have any heals there, so he falls. They did take him out. However, now 4 players back for Oh Yeah here. Isaac found Milio. That's a huge opening pick for this defensive side that desperately needed to get even in this fight. And Necros, yet again, towards this backline, now has to deal with Jakaru, and Sovereigns are worrying about this backline instead of the point at the moment. So these supports are still nice and healthy back here for Oh Yeah to keep them nice and strong in this fight. Chasms gets to roll around the point. However, finally Jakaru comes in with that Primal Wedge to get rid of Cool Boy. Now Sovereigns rotates towards this point. Jakaru gets another one. Backline taken out, but the trap comes through to stop Jakaru's rampage. It's not going to be enough to stop Sovereigns in this overtime push. However, Necros comes through, but his attempt is surely going to be futile with this blade. Eventually falls somehow, some way. Sovereigns have pushed it through in overtime to cap it out.
Oh my goodness, Jakaru again coming in with the really big Winston play. He goes in with that Primal Rage and just manages to worm his way into the back line from Oh Yeah, dealing with both the Ana and the Baptiste. And Matrix is dropped before the Bap goes down, but without any support, it really doesn't find that same value that they're looking for, especially because Sovereigns see it and just move to the other side of the payload so that it's just blocked naturally by the cover.
I think that the adjustment leading into this attack is because it wasn't even that bad of a defense for all. Yeah, I feel like they did a good job overall, but I mean the adjustment they have to desperately make it is just to play a little bit further back. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but you know, at the end of the day, you got Sovereign willing to dive as deep as they are on you. You know, you might as well not give them that free dive.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this Ana Baptiste over that Zenyatta, because you can see, right, that so much resources from Sovereigns is just spent on that aggressive burst, because every single time the dive comes through and they commit, they're finding a pick. Or they're finding a lot more space because Oya's composition is entirely disrupted. But by running both the Ana and the Baptiste, who have so much burst healing but also survivability on their own, the Sleep Dart to force JKR into using that bubble as soon as the Winston dives in, which is the timing that a tank really doesn't want to use, right? You never want to spend that bubble as you commit to the dive, rather you want to hold on to it. But Oya are back to that Zenyatta. They're prioritizing the damage output that the Discord Orb affords them. I just hope that this doesn't leave the backline too vulnerable again.
No, they're playing very aggressive too, but that's to set up Kaya. However, now Milio does get him with the grenades on that backside of the hotel, so Kaya couldn't set up in that position he wanted to. And now, oh yeah, you know, they don't have any time bank to worry about for Sovereign, so there's a lot of time on the clock for them. However, that's already one team fight down for Sovereign.
Yeah, there's the vulnerability as well of that Zen rising its head once again. Melio on the Echo just gets the drop down like a hawk onto that Zen, finishing them off with the beam. Chasm does, however, find the kids. And that's a lot of pressure off of the backline for the members of Oh Yeah. As a result, they're going to surge immediately forward. The beam comes out from Melio, just trying to buy Sovereigns the time to be able to reposition their Ana and Lucio.
I feel like Isaac is such an aggressive Zenyatta player too, just to keep pushing forward through this hotel side to allow Necros to get Jakaru on that side with that Discord Orb. Now Necros finds Buddy on the delay, and that was a very fast first take for All Yeah.
This is what we were talking about, right? Glass cannon. When that Zen is working, you're just doing so much damage, and you could see that Sovereigns were just sidelined off of the point entirely. They didn't want Buddy to be within line of sight, because if that Discord Orb falls onto the Ana, there isn't really a lot Sovereigns can do to save them. As a result, they prioritize trying to keep all of their members alive for as long as possible and not giving ultimate charge over to Oh Yeah until Natlox is going to be able to come in either with a Sound Barrier or JKarry with a Primal Rage to be able to peel away the Nano Blade that's going to be set up pretty soon for the side of Oh Yeah.
It's always so fun seeing the mini. Oh my god! Oh my god! The Sleep Dart barely whiffs onto your kids, and your kids capitalizes with that pulse bomb kill. Now Jakaru also finds Necros, and that's a fast reset off of that early pick already.
Yeah, the Ana was not prepared for the Tracer to drop down, but that is going to allow Sovereigns to now prepare themselves for positioning into this next fight. Isaac is actually forced into using the Transcendence to try to keep themselves alive even longer, but this just might stagger the Zen away from his team even longer. What is going on, Dustin? This fight is so scrappy.
I mean, this is what All Yeah want, I guess. I mean, they get Milio, they get Jakaru and Outlaws too, so they get to keep pushing this robot forward off of Isaac's Transcendence, which was seemingly questionable, but it did work out for them, so...
It makes sense. You know that you could just use Pulse Bomb. You're using the Transcendence to bait Sovereigns into taking that really small enclosed space of a fight for the Junkrat and the Genji, because you've allowed Necros to build into that blade as Hammer Mines come out from Chasm, trying to keep Sovereigns locked away from the payload as long as possible.
You see the same problem All Yeah we're having on the defensive side, just losing their supports. Buddy went down as well to All Yeah, who decided to go forward. Cool Boy took his counterpart out somehow. By the way, you rarely see an Ana v Ana just body shot kill, considering that wasn't the nade, but the Nano Boost comes out now to the Genji. The beat drop to counter it. The Sleep Dart comes through, but it's deflected, and he's taken out as well. Cool Boy is traded out by Jakaru, but Necros gets out Natlocks too. So both supports dead on both sides. However, Necros stuck underneath. He was at an odd angle. Now the tire from Kaya does get Jakaru 1.63 meters. Can it push through in time? Doesn't seem like it. Kaya's just trying to play his life over to this backside, knowing he's surely going to fall. But now Chasm now comes back. The heal's there in time to save Melio. The Coffee's still here, trying to push it through his Chasms, but the supports, they're doing too good of a job pocketing each other on that backside.
Melio's going to be coming in with the ultimate as well. Duplication going to be that for the Echo, and it's the Hammond that is decided. so they can try and use those mines to clear Oya's positioning off of this payload. Nano Booster J-Karu goes into that backline and finds the Zenyatta once again, dropping the bubble to allow themselves to keep this aggressive hold. However, it means that the Winston isn't there to peel for his backline. So Oya is able to come in with the better numbers in the fight and finally pick up the payload.
I mean, I know this is a bit of a hot take, but I know it's a bit hard for Melio to, you know, pick the correct hero to copy. I feel like Wrecking Ball and tanks in general are a bit harder, you know, to actually copy, considering you're maxed out on HP these days, right? I think it's, what is it, 300 max HP that the Echo gets after the copy. So Wrecking Ball, and it's so awkward. Wrecking Ball's damage is really reliant on his slams, and it's on the opposite side. Sovereign decided to go for that aggressive engage. Now without that copy, no ultimates either. Seemingly just a fast team wipe for them. They lose Leaky Kids, they lose J-Karu, and Isaac. They've got that hard pocket for him now, so they can just keep pushing forward, playing that aggressive Jonex style, and get this snowball going.
Yeah, Isaac's going to be holding on to this Transcendence as well, which is brilliant news for the Zen, because Sovereigns are coming in with a Pulse Bomb, and you know the prime target is going to be the Zenyatta. They're able to keep J-Karu trapped for a little bit longer, but the Primal Rage allows him to break free and start to move into that back line. He goes extremely low, but is able to jump back in towards the health pack. Transcendence comes out from Isaac, so Oya can keep themselves in the fight, but Cool Boy gets targeted by your kids, and without the Ana, Oya are going to absolutely stumble. They don't have the burst healing necessary, they all just have to back out. The good news for them is that Cool Boy did not panic and use the Nano Boost onto Necros. They are still going to have the Nano Blade to try to break open this fight.
Yeah, I mean, that's crucial. And J-Karu, by the way, nice job in the last fight. Jesus, Isaac's aim is on point. Nice Zenyatta play from him. J-Karu now goes with that Nano Boost first, so it's a Nano Blade versus a Nano Winston. Necros gets the kill onto Buddy. Cool Boy's dead on the opposite side. Kaya does get Melio. Now Necros finds himself alone on the point. So they do get this payload in the objective forward, but it could be a bit of a bait, because Sovereign know they want to come back towards this fight as long as they wasted that Nano Blade and it works out. J-Karu gets rid of Necros, and the value of that Nano Blade is just not found. Chasm with some nice tech underneath the bottom side to get out of there, but, oh yeah, they're now in an old deficit.
Yeah, Chasm, however, didn't give away his health bar to better Sovereign's ultimate charge up. Tyre comes through from Kaya. Gonna come out from potentially window, but it's just gonna get dropped straight into the Winston! J-Karu drops the Winston bubble, but isn't able to time it to block the damage, and this is the opening that Oya we're looking for. Melio once again goes for the duplication onto the Hammond, but already you can see, like you said, that health bar falling extremely low before the mines are even going to be able to be primed on that payload, and that spacing Sovereigns were looking to create is going to be denied. It's going to be found, however, by your kids. Still alive on this Tracer, allowing J-Karu to actually respawn and come back into the mix.
Yeah, 0.35 meters left. Now a minute left, and once this crosses a minute, which it will in just about a second, you know, that means Sovereigns will not have another chance on the attacking side if, oh yeah, do manage to cap out.
They don't really have the time to be able to build up to their win condition as well. The push in case of emergency Nano Blade that Oya have been looking to use to create so much space, so much threat. However, Kaya opens up the fight, taking out J-Karu before the Primal Rage can be popped from the Winston. Necros looking for that dive, already sees Matlock falling extremely low, but doesn't want to commit in deep until Cool Boy is within line of sight. Keep everyone sustained on that car.
They do find that locks. Here comes that Nano onto the Echo. Forces the Transcendence. J-Karu is absolutely slobbering at the mouth right now, knowing that there's no Transcendence, but a perfect sleep dart from Cool Boy comes through. They eventually do wake him up, however, so now J-Karu's running rampant, does get Cool Boy. Nano Boost on to Necros, but he doesn't have any target. The Nano Boost is surely going to run out. It was a bit of a panic Nano. However, the blade now pops. Melio's dead, but Melio did trade back Isaac, so now no supports on the side of, oh yeah, they're all low. And Necros falls to J-Karu, who came back onto the point, and now it's just Kaya who has to pop the tire, but it's deleted immediately, and J-Karu shuts him down as well, and Sovereign stops it last second. Oh yeah, could not punch their ticket in, and Sovereign are now 2-0 in the series.
Yeah, so Oya decided to make the call to wake the Winston up prematurely for two reasons. One, you know J-Karu is going to have the Primal Rage, and you want him to wake up in a more controlled environment where you can try and chunk him down as fast as possible. And two, you allow Necros to build a little bit closer towards that blade charge, and that's exactly what they're looking to do. Right, the fact that Cool Boy did have to drop in that Nano as they're getting taken down by that Primal Winston, because they know there's no other opportunity where they're going to be able to be in tune with each other, where the Ana and the Genji are going to be off and online at the same time. And Sovereigns, again, it's that experience being able to disengage the same way that we see them disengage from the rush. They know that the Nano is there for the Genji to bolt into that blade, and they just distance themselves. Without the blade to come through, without a kill to come out from Necros, he doesn't have the dash reset, so he doesn't have the ability to close up the distance and do the damage necessary with that Nano to bolt into the ultimate.
Yeah, fantastic adjustment, like you said, for Sovereign's backline there. And yes, Isaac was hitting a lot of shots. By the way, Mox, we've been seeing so many support play of the games. I feel like we've seen like only Baptiste, and that was Enyata play of the game. I mean, that's kind of surprising, but you know, Sovereign, great adjustments from them. I mean, just to have your support stay alive, unlike the opposite side with they couldn't actually capitalize, and now to go 2-up over the series. Now they're 2-0 over and we have a bit of a break now, guys, before the next map. This has been an exciting series. Have put up a fight, but Sovereign are kind of just stomping any type of engagement for So we'll see you guys in just a second. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back to the Overwatch Pro-Am qualifiers, and we have versus Sovereigns in the lower bracket. Sovereigns is going to go up 2-0 over the series, winning Antarctic Peninsula and winning King's Row. And now we're moving on to Shambali. A lot of new maps for Overwatch 2 that we're going into today, Moxie.
Yeah, I mean, again, it really does come down to, even though we're seeing different maps come through and newer landscapes for a lot of these teams to roll on to, the fact that are very much just set in the compositions that they run, it feels very similar to what we saw from Antarctic and then when we moved over to King's Row. It's the same composition, so what worked for you on the other maps, even though, you know, maybe the corners are a little bit different, or maybe the chokes that you try and navigate around are a little bit different too, it's still the same solutions, right? It's still looking for those disengagements, it's still trying to bait out the Genji's position for that nano blade to not find the same level of impact that they're looking for, so you don't get the kills to activate the dash resets. That means that one kill very quickly spirals into a full team wipe. And Sovereigns have already shown themselves to be more than adept at being able to do just that.
Yeah, Sovereign's really been able to transition how they play to deal with AEA's team, which we've talked about previously with other teams, with, like we mentioned before, LH Cloudy from the side of SR Peak Check, where they said that AEA is a very scary team to go against. You know, sometimes they can throw some things at you that you're not expecting to play well against, right? Obviously, they're going to keep playing that Junkrat, they're going to keep playing the Genji. However, you know, compared to the other lineups, compared to the other teams, which are kind of playing the same stuff over and over again, it does kind of mix you up, makes you play a little bit different. Sometimes it'll make you nervous, right? Even some of the strongest, most obviously strongest nerves, I think, in the side of, you know, SR Peak Check, who are doing well in the upper bracket. Meanwhile, Sovereigns have proven not to falter. They've been continually going forward and haven't crumbled at the seams.
So I think a major impact as well is why Clyde was a little bit more reluctant to go up against this team, is because they like to run Rhine Rush. For that team, Sovereigns are actually running the Winston. So a Rhine into a Junkrat is entirely different for a Winston, because the Rhine has to approach very, very slowly. The Junkrat spam damage is going to chip into his health bar. It's going to chip into his shield health bar. And they're not really going to be able to formulate that very intensive, aggressive dive into the backline, which is the one thing that AEA are struggling against the most, keeping that Zen intact. The Winston, on the other hand, can negate a lot of that Junkrat spam damage by just jumping over the choke, and that then has the two-pronged approach of negating the Junkrat while also still putting a lot more pressure on the backline. Something that AEA have been struggling to deal with, especially when J-Kara is able to come in with these really clutch bubble placements. And the Primal Rages too. Like, it's not just in the last meta where we saw Primal Rages being invested to try and body through overclocks. These Primal Rages are being used to isolate out members of and secure picks, netting them away from any peel potential and guaranteeing a dead Zen.
Yeah, and it's fun to see, you know, the likes of Jikaru, like you mentioned, having a bit more team success now, considering, you know, we always talk about him as being one of the best Winstons in the game and the best Winston in Europe, but a lot of the times he hasn't had, you know, an extreme amount of team success. Now leading into Pro-Am, to be able to continue forward and hopefully qualify to play against Overwatch teams, he wants to prove people otherwise, and right now going up 2-0 over AEA is proving that his team is quite good, and Sovereigns can put an end to a bit of the cheese that can potentially come out from AEA.
Yeah, and as a result, Sovereigns are showing that they're going to run that Winston just the same as they've been running in all of the previous maps, potentially. AEA on the defense, however, are going to be swapping Kaya off of the Junkrat and instead putting him on the Torbjorn. This isn't a throw, this is very much well thought through. Torbjorn is very much considered one of the better counters to Tracers and Sombra players because of the amount of damage that that turret is able to tap away at you with. And especially on a map like Shambali, where there's a lot of flank routes available for that Tracer, that turret getting the ping on the Tracer's location is going to be the make or break between this backline surviving.
Yeah, AEA already playing back, trying to give up a bit of that payload distance at this first corner. So AEA just going to play back, let that turret kind of do its work in that back line. And Cool Boy, by the way, Moxie's onto that Kariko as well. So AEA trying to mix things up to deal with Sovereign, who have been consistently playing this Ana Lucio Echo composition.
Yeah, the Suzu is going to be available as well as the Immortality build. They are really trying to play for survivability for this backline, even with that Torbjorn. Your kid's already falling exceptionally low, isn't able to make it back to his team or a health pack, and as a result, they're able to find the pick onto the Tracer. And look at how aggressive AEA are getting as a result. No Tracer to hold that backline back. They can start to push forward.
Yeah, nice sleep and nice support as well onto Buddy on that backside to get rid of that Genji was crucial, and now the turret goes down for Kaya, so a lot of that damage output for AEA is now taken out. However, that Baptiste and that Torp continually backing up should be safe as Chasm kind of creates some space onto the payload, but he gets slept. However, Suzu perfectly timed to save Chasm's life. However, it's not enough to keep him out of there in its entirety, as they just have to keep backing up now. If they get delayed here even more, we could see some snagger happen for AEA.
Well, talking about that Reinhardt, we've summoned it into existence. Seeing that aren't running that Junkrat, Jkaru comes back on the Reinhardt, looking to try to rush into the members of Isaac is going to have an Amp Matrix, but no. Sovereign's now going to be swapping off of the Rein onto the Winston once more. They were just looking to try and come back into the fight as quickly as possible and push the advantage when were down members. Now that they weren't able to find that opening, they have to reset once more. As Jkaru takes a lot of damage, Nano Boost is going to be available to try to push this Winston's position into being even more stalwart on that high ground. As know that the Genji Blade is pretty soon going to be coming through.
A nice pocket there from Buddy to keep his tank alive. Gonna have a ton of ultimates though coming up, like you mentioned in Sovereign. They have 3. They have that Lucio and ult and a copy coming through, but they have that explosive Genji Blade with the mines coming through. So Chasms decides to pop his mines, but gets slept again. Buddy sleep darts this series. I swear, he's hitting about 50% of them, and that's a crucial amount because now Necros is dead. Jkaru finds him. Natlox gets rid of Kaya, and that just sets everything up. The snowball after that comes through. And even with those ultimate advantage that they had, it's not going to stop Buddy's sleep dart.
Yeah, and with that additional damage for Jkaru with the Nano Boost, he's about to hit Primal Rage. Natlock still holding onto the Sound Barrier. And one major impact of not running that Ana is that, you're a little bit more survivability. You also don't have the Nano Boost to better build up this blade for Necros. However, will still have a lot of ultimates coming online into this next fight. What they don't have is control of the space. Your kids on this Tracer pushes forward, takes Kaya out, and without that threat of Molten Core, Sovereigns get to hold up a really aggressive position once more.
Jkaru setting up here beforehand, maybe to force out ultimates, but are just kind of slowly pushing out Sovereign. However, Jkaru wants to have that first advantage, in which he takes it onto Isaac early. No teleport from Coolboy. Now Coolboy has to play his life, but just can't save his own self from Milio. Meanwhile, Necros with the blade only found 1, and that is not enough to give any sort of foothold here, as Sovereigns are looking even better on Shambali.
Yeah, you can see that tried to set the blade up, not with a nano, but with a rush. But the fact that Isaac had gone down before the fight had begun for some really good focus coming out from your kids, and then Jkaru, means that the sustainability is just not there for to hold themselves in that rush. And as a result, Sovereign sustained through 2 of the hardest hitting ultimates that they had to deal with.
Now the checkpoint's coming up for them. Sovereign sitting back. Chasm goes to touch the point, but Melio got the turret of Isaac, and your kids finds Isaac in the backline. Sorry, the turret of Kaya. Meanwhile, Primal Rage committed for Jkaru onto this point. Chasm did find Buddy, and Necros found your kids with a deflection of Melio's grenades, but Melio does find Necros onto the backside. Chasm's trying to create some space for this point to finally to not push through, rather, this checkpoint. Meanwhile, Coolboy just playing his life, uses the Suzu, has a teleport, gets back to his team. So it looks like they're stabilizing. Meanwhile, Melio could not build that copy, and Jkaru's kind of left in the dust after that one.
Yeah, Jkaru taking a lot of focus fire, is able to just book his way through that little crack in the wall to drop back to the rest of his team. But he's going to have that nano, but they don't really have the room to be able to use it right now. They're looking for a full reset. Jkaru is able to trade out for Necros, but with the majority of picks coming on through, now have bought themselves a little bit of breathing room to be able to better position themselves for this next fight.
All right, we have some setup time now. 1 minute and 30 seconds towards the coastal side. Sovereigns is trying to set up, but kind of sniffing out. They're aware of this push, and now your kids with that pulse bomb, he's gonna have to look for this backline on the stair angle. Now looks for Coolboy, trying to force out that teleport or the Suzu. Now comes that teleport. Necros is left alone against 2 DPS, or a Lucio and a Tracer. Can't play his life well enough. Weren't there to support him, but Kaya does trade back Buddy onto that backline. Milio drops the copied mines on the cart, so it does zone it out. However, the copy runs through the lamp, saves Isaac, actually barely, keeps him alive, has that support, and Chasm's mine gets your kids as well somehow, and now locks too. So finally, they found a foothold here. Sovereigns, they can't get an inch further.
Yeah, a lot of ultimates invested from the side of Melio's actually going to go on to Cassidy to try to deal with this Hammed, using that Magnate, threatening out that close quarter space that are looking to just push into the backline every single time a dive has come through. Been able to find a really good pick. This Necros is going to hold on to that blade once again. Coolboy sitting on that rush to better build it up. As Coolboy comes over, first pick onto the Tracer. The pulse bomb not going to be there. to bait out the Suzu cooldown, and as a result, Sovereigns have no choice but to open up the fight and try and displace members, healing them away with that Primal, but it doesn't find anything, and now they've used Primal, they're not going to be able to use it to sustain on the payload longer.
Oh no, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, spawn points might be too far away. Karu went down, nobody can touch, and oh yeah, will stop. Sovereign in the streets fades.
Yeah, you can really see the difference maker is when Chasm is just able to come in with that ball and shut down all of the space that Sovereigns are looking to set up, right? Every single time we see Sovereigns looking for that flank opportunity, they're able to find a pick into the backline, but Oya decide that they're going to change up their positioning entirely. They think that, okay, this is where we're going to be at our most exposed because Sovereigns are going to be taking those flank angles with your kids and Jkaru. But what we have to do is we make sure that even if we sacrifice a Genji, our support lineup is still going to be able to stay standing. And as a result, this Hammond is going to be able to stay standing. And that's where Sovereigns don't really have an answer to. When the mines come through, they don't have a Sigma, they don't have a Reinhardt. Jkaru does not have the luxury of just sitting there zapping away the mines one by one. Instead, every single time the minefield comes through, it does its job. It either nets a pick or it clears the table that Oya can come through and set Sovereigns in their place.
Sovereign's going to have to change something up here to deal with Chasm potentially. Buddy sleep darts were big on that attacking side, but they did run out of steam towards the end because of exactly like you mentioned. Chasm's just doing a great job creating that space for yeah. And now, you know, on the attacking side, however, Moxie, I mean, we talk about yeah being a great defensive team because of their compositions, but on attack, you know, Junkrat's a little bit harder to set up.
It doesn't look like they're running that Junkrat though. Kaya once again is going to be committing to this Tracer, and you saw how important that Tracer controlling that angle, pressuring this backline so that the Ana feels like she has to save that sleep dart for as long as possible, really is when actually being able to successfully push through the first part of this map.
Well, they've already pinged out that canopy on the left side, so they're aware the dive potential is available, but Chasm just going through the main side, actually drive through the window. Now, set up on that backline, tries to go for a swing, but it's just booped away, continually pressured out. The counter dive now coming through from Jkaru onto the backside, lamp committed. And now, Necros just going aggressive, deflects Melio's own shot into his forehead, and that should open things for yeah. Chasm is slept, however, onto that front line. Kaya is pressured out, no health pack available for him, just consistently putting in that damage to the backline. The kids trying to get rid of him, and they actually they take out Necros, but Kaya falls too. Chasm gets rid of Buddy, though. Your kids falls as well, and yeah, in a solid position to continually push Sovereign's back.
Now, Coolboy does go down. Chasm now going to have to try and find the kills onto Jkaru, is able to do just that with the Hammond, and this payload will continue to move. However, it was a messy and elongated fight, and as a result, Sovereigns are coming back into this next push with a pulse bomb before yeah are able to come in with ultimates of their own. Your kids lands it, and already that's going to be lamped down for the count.
And the Suzu too, so both cooldowns committed, and it seemingly matters too because they lost Isaac and Necros, couldn't save the lamp, couldn't save the Suzu. However, Kaya does trade back and outlocks. Chasm gets rid of Buddy too, so that makes this an even fight. And on the front line, Milio gets rid of Kaya, but Chasm trades him back. The kid gets Coolboy, and this is a very messy fight. Chasm now left alone versus a Tracer in this backside, probably just going to try to play his life, but unfortunately, I'm sure he's going to lose it. No, he got the health pack and just skeets on out of there.
Yeah, able to roll back away to the rest of his team. Still a missing chunk of his health. The Sovereigns are still applying a lot of pressure. There we go. The Hammer's health is back up to full. The mines are going to be there. Necros not going to have a blade just yet as Jkaru makes the first move. Does get that nano boost. Already that lamp has to come on through. Chasm decides now is the time to drop the minefield as with Jkaru in the backline, Oya decides to sacrifice the backline to better push up the front line.
Yeah, I mean, Jkaru's just not getting the kills until now. Isaac finally gets him. I mean, this backline had so much support, but Coolboy takes down Jkaru, and the point was capped out now. So, yeah, they'll finally get this time on the board. 4 minutes now in the second phase.
Yeah, with the Hammond mines being there on point and Jkaru being so far detached from the rest of the team chasing after the backline from yeah, there wasn't really any easy way of clearing those Hammond mines, so Sovereigns have to just let the payload move. As Oya will have to not really got a lot to play off of except these two support ultimates in this next fight. That might be more than enough though. They've displaced Melio, that Deadeye not going to be there to try and zone this team away, but your kids lands the stick onto Chasm knowing that the map isn't going to be there to lamp, and Sovereigns look to try and stabilize.
Pulse bomb lanes as well. Kaya, nice job. Actually doing a great job flexing over to this Tracer to give, that pressure they needed. And it's entering one fight territory now for Sovereign. It looks like they're entering stall form because Buddy swapping over to that Kariko to try to delay.
Yeah, Melio is going to have that Deadeye. Didn't get the opportunity to use it in the last fight. Will have it to potentially zone. But Coolboy comes in with the absolute clutch kunai. Lands the headshot onto the Cassidy, and Sovereigns have to just drop the sidebar and contest. Otherwise, the payload is going to hit the finish mark.
Yeah, Coolboy playing phenomenal, getting these opening picks and pumping in that damage, and still healing his backline, making sure Jacaro can't get the kill, but he does get that damage boost from the slam. However, they committed so much just to get rid of Isaac, and now 2 meters left. It's just Milia who came back onto the Soldier 76, and it looks like we'll be going to the next map.
You can see that, they are sometimes able to flex over onto a couple different heroes, and that does allow them to take Shambali, right? Kaya going onto that Tracer, a little bit more traditional in the follow-up DPS that we see, following up on those Hammond dives. Keeping Necros on the Genji as well applies even more pressure onto the backline, simply because of the mobility that's afforded to the DPS from They can really be at all of the angles necessary, and you saw the investments from the resources that was coming from Sovereign support lineups. They were double stacking resources to make sure when the dive came through, they survived the initial onslaught. They survived the initial onslaught, but because all of those resources had already been gone, they didn't really have anything left when the fight went a little bit longer.
Yeah, unfortunately for Sovereigns, it looks like they're a little bit uncomfortable versus there in their adjustments. I mean, just really that swap off that Junkrat immediately started working for them, right? They started off with the Torbjorn and then swapped to that Tracer. So I don't know if it's the adjustment of or do you think it's more of the of Sovereigns not being as prepared on Shambali?
I think a large part of it really was the adjustment. Right, Kaya is known for being a Junkrat one trick. If you're Sovereigns, you probably haven't really prepared for the ability of that Tracer to swap off of the Junkrat. And like you saw, it did throw them a little bit for the loop. Jacaro wanted to try to dive into that backline, but every single time he did, it felt like he just got slapped, separated away from his team. And Oya started really taking the fact that the Winston being the one to create the space propped Sovereigns up in King's Row and turned that strategy against them, because when the Winston committed to that jump, as long as Oya were able to keep the rest of the half of the team occupied, the tank is away. There's no real damage sponge to soak up all of the bullets that come through from Oya's side, and they just play the objective, sacrificing one player to keep the Winston occupied or running away with the map on the other half.
And now we're going to Coliseum. So Sovereigns decided to play this map to think that they have a chance to finally shut down to shut them down 3-1. However, have given themselves an opportunity here to come back in this series, to make this reverse sweep and to progress further in the tournament in this lower bracket, make the run. But on Coliseum, right, maybe in a bit of a different position. They could still run that Tracer and Torbjorn. Do you think they try to swap towards more of those compositions, or do you think they go back towards that Junkrat?
I mean, I would hope that we see the Tracer is definitely getting a lot more value simply because of the pressure that you get to put at the beginning of fights as well as throughout them. The Junkrat was picking up value, just stuffing up Sovereigns and cutting them off, taking specific angles, and you can run it on Coliseum, especially with how that first fight is formed. It's the same thing as Reinhardt's finding more value with the Maze on that first fight, right? Enclosed spaces means the Junkrat damage is going to be connecting to a majority of players. The problem is that, again, Sovereigns were knowing that they were going up against they were knowing that they had to prepare for a Junkrat. Where they've looked most uncomfortable is when they've had that curveball of Kaya coming out on that Tracer. And I really want to see keep playing those mind games and keep pushing Sovereigns out of that comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how adjust here now on Coliseum. So the onus is on them to keep pushing forward and keep trying to put Sovereign in a weird position, because Sovereigns look pretty solid in the first two maps, but still made it close, even with a completely different composition than Coliseum. We've seen so many of these teams so far, it feels like in the tournament, just lose after the first 3 minutes, simply because they get the payload already to 100 meters, and the other team, there's just too much time to try to get back. They can get maybe to 60, but it feels like that reverse sweep, when you have 0 meters, the other team gets to 100, it always just feels that extra bit difficult on push, right?
Yeah, it really is always about that sort of push and pull of momentum. I mean, no surprises. The map type is literally called push. Obviously, it's going to have some serious impact on how this map plays. But I think another thing that's going to have some serious impact isn't really the DPS lineup of Oya, it's the support lineup. Whether they're going to decide to try and go with the Ana or whether or not we're going to see the Kiriko come through. Because the Ana means that Necros has a little bit more of a safer time with the Nano Blade. It does a lot more damage, it pulls a lot more attention. But the Kiriko was winning them the neutral, simply because there was another ability that had to be burned out from Sovereigns before they could find any impact. And worse for Sovereigns, the initial impact of that dive of J.K. really committing in with that Winston was softened by the Suzus coming through to just cushion the impact of the Winston's jump.
And I wonder how consistently Coolboy could do that. He was doing it consistently on that last map. He was getting those picks on Kiriko, but let's see if he continues to rock that Kiriko, because we haven't seen too many Kirikos pop off like that, right? Get those opening picks. Maybe we see Overwatch League level Kirikos do it, but I mean, nowadays people are pretty good at avoiding those kunai. But at the same time, oh yeah, right? It's on them to change that composition potentially for Colosseo when this map is a bit more dynamic and not as static.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm biased towards the Kiriko on this pick, simply because, like you pointed out, Coolboy being able to just throw those kunais into those angles was keeping Melio in check a lot more, especially when you were seeing the casting and he was setting up for the Deadeyes. A couple of well-placed kunais entirely denied the ultimate that Sovereigns were looking to be able to zone out that fight for. However, Oya do look like they're going to be running Chasm on the Wrecking Ball, no surprises there, and I'm very happy. They're running the Tracer, they're running the Kiriko. This is adaptation coming through from the team. They've identified that this comp made Sovereigns uncomfortable, and they've decided to double down on it.
This is kind of sick. This is like the season of changes. You know, we got LBBD moving to support. We got like Jazan moving to Cassidy. Now we got Kaya moving to Tracer. So he can do whatever he wants at this point because Coolboy, we asked if he could do it consistently, and today he is. You kids early pick again. But Kaya traded out on this backside. Coolboy has to drop that Suzu to keep his team nice and healthy. However, it looks like J-Karu wants more. He went in further in for more of an engagement here. However, that space is still being claimed back by Chasm, who has a health pack to play around. Yeah,
Chasm denies that health pack, and now they can turn around onto J-Karu. Coolboy is able to find the tank and still keep himself alive. The stickies come through from the Echo, but they don't actually manage to connect, punishing the fact that there wasn't a Suzu for the Kiriko. And oh yeah, by keeping Sovereigns uncomfortable and keeping this team separated, deny the dive from having the damage necessary to chunk through one health bar.
I mean, this is some messy Overwatch here for sure. Now they have to back out of their Kaya. The teleport to keep his team alive is Coolboy. Coolboy now lost Kaya yet again, but a teleport is sure going to come up in just a second. Chasm, you know, he's back in this fight, but now he's just feeding a little bit of Volt Charge in Sovereigns. They're going to be up for this next one. Coolboy finally gets picked off. And Sovereigns, with this Lucio Kiriko kind of switcheroo, has worked out for them so far on Colosseo.
Yeah, Sovereign's not falling for the bait position that Oya were able to push them into, tempting side lanes in the first engagement, separating out the team. This time Sovereigns decide to take the fight as a stack on main and are able to find the kills and now look for snowball potential. But he has to actually use that Suzy to try to survive, but once it runs out, Chasm is still in the backline and actually gets to ball through the members of Sovereign, knocking them away from the rush and the impacts of it.
Perfect target focus, though, for Chasm, who was flying across the map. The team were calling out certain targets, and he was right there. Necros did fall to 1 HP. They got the blade for next fight, but they do commit that rush. Baptiste, Window, and Mines, and Pulse Bomb. Meanwhile, Sovereigns, they commit the Coffee Pulse and that Kitsune Rush, but they still got a Primal and Beat Drop next fight.
Yeah, Blade is going to be online for Oya to try to keep themselves on this objective, but Sovereigns do have that Sign Baron. Without a rush or a nano boost, that Sign Baron is going to be more than enough to stay necessary to be able to see themselves through the ultimate. But not if Necros is able to catch Natlux mid-dash as the barrier isn't able to come through!
Nice play from Necros. We've seen him do it previously. Does it yet again. Another shutdown of a Lucio beat drop. And now that enables J-Karu now to come back through for this fight. Although Necros got that kill on the Natlocks, it seems like Sovereigns just had too much of an ultimate advantage to actually, you know, benefit from that fight. But so far close, 21 meters to 23.
Yeah, Chasm just trying to build up into that Hammond minefield as quickly as possible, knowing the Sovereigns don't really have an answer to it. The kid's likewise going to be trying to build up to that Pulse Bomb as quickly as possible, knowing that if he's able to burn out that Immortality field, the dive can actually try and find the target that is trying to push onto, as opposed to just burning out a resource. There's the hammer mines, there's the dive, the pile drive to set it up, and immediately Melio actually peels with the echo to try to make sure that the backline stays alive.
Yeah, good job by Netlocks as well to ride towards that skybox instead of falling into the mines. Now Sovereign onto that front side, just kind of looking for that dive. Jakaru has to commit the bubble. Kaya has that pulse bomb ready to go, trying to force the recall by your kids on this backside, but has to recall in his own situation. Now has to back out of there. Doesn't have any assistance until he gets back to his team. Just a peel for Jakaru, who doesn't have that primal rage, so he commits the pulse bomb, but he misses, and then Jakaru gets him right back with the snipe. So that's up 1 for Sovereign so far, who are nice and healthy. And oh yeah, they commit the window. They commit the window on the backside. Chasm stuck around this other side. He's surely going to live, who got the lamp, but oh yeah, they're in a weird position. They gotta wait for Kaya to get back, and they commit that window.
Yeah, the commission of the window, though, does allow them to only mean that the Tracer is the only one to go down. And now, with that rush, they can immediately try to bite back, but Sovereigns hold on to a rush of their own, waiting for Oya to drop theirs, and then drop it behind so that when the disengagement comes through, they can still catch on to the members of Oya, punishing the fact that they don't have a Lucio, and they're not able to disengage in time and reposition at the same speed that Sovereigns are able to.
Yeah, I mean, that was just perfect from Sovereigns there in that situation. Good rush from Buddy, but unfortunately for Coolboy, his was a bit too aggressive, and they got engaged upon, so they couldn't fight exactly where they wanted. And Sovereigns, they have the ultimate advantage in this next fight as well.
It is going to be a duplicate coming through from Melio. He decides to go for the duplication onto the Genji. Chunks down the lamp as quickly as possible. Doesn't have the Blade Vault up at the moment, as all of the attention, all of the players are dealing with a primal reaching Winston in the backline. Jakaru's found Isaac. He's been able to see all of the threat away from his front line, and Sovereigns are still turning this fight in their favor, but Kai comes in with 2. Might be able to find a third. Will be able to pick out the Wrecking Ball, all without using that Pulse Bomb.
Did he pulse bomb himself? Kaya died to self-damage in that fight. I think he might have, I imagine, stuck Jakaru and then hit himself there, but not great for him. However, oh yeah, they're back in this fight, and it seems like all these fights, I mean, obviously these teams are so evenly matched, just happening in this middle area. Sovereign still has that pulse bomb of their own, could use it here on Isaac, who has to use the lamp, but the blade is committed from Necros against the beat drop. The Suzu comes out into grenades from Melio, shuts down that blade as well. Coolboy does get him, but at what cost? Now he loses his life. So Sovereign, they're in a great position here. Chasm can't trade anything back. The kids commit the pulse bomb on him, and Sovereigns, they're just going to keep pushing with this meter advantage.
It's going to be an arms race between Isaac and Buddy. Which of these supports are going to get these ultimates online first? Sovereign's looking to try to pick up that little bit of respawn benefit if they're able to find the first checkpoint, but Kaya is able to take down Buddy. That Kitsune rush charge immediately halted as Isaac is now dove upon.
Your kids does get Kaya though on that backside, so he does trade it out, but Chasm gets Jakaru, Isaac gets kids, and oh yeah, it looks like they're trying to reclaim this objective here. Natlonx just delays it for a little bit longer, but 44 meters now for Sovereigns. Oh yeah, are going to be in a bit of a weird position because they're going to dive aggressively with this window in mines, but they'll be against that Primal Rage Kitsune rush, which could play a lot more aggressive.
I mean, ideally you want to save the hammer mines to be able to counter Buddy's Kitsune rush, right? You don't have a sandbag to be able to sustain your health bar through it. And you can see Chasm just waiting. Has the mines, is actually going to use it to counter the dive coming through from Sovereigns to keep Isaac up alive.
Yeah, and this heals as well is crucial to keep Kaya and Necros alive on the front line. The Baptiste window works out perfectly for them, but Jakaru does get Necros onto the backside. Kaya just trying to 1v1 your kids, and your kids gets taken out by Isaac as well on that backside. So Jakaru Primal Rages to finish off Isaac. Now in the 1 versus 2, falls back to his team. They're really trying to make sure this robot does not push any bit further because they want to keep that meter advantage. Kaya now throws that pulse bomb out, but he loses his life without the recall, and Sovereigns now have the lead again.
Yeah, Sovereigns, by the way, still holding on to this rush. Are going to be able to have it to counter Cool Boys. Your kid's holding on to that pulse bomb. Necros is so close to the blade, but he doesn't have it just yet. Chasm's just trying to create the space for the Genji to be able to work off. But he's found Jakaru, and this is the risk. He can't deflect that lightning. He has to give up that spot.
Yeah, Sovereign now trying to deal with Necros that's in their backline. Kitsune Rush pop to save his life. Jakaru is the one to find Isaac. Even through that Kitsune Rush, the extra heals simply are not enough. Jakaru doesn't even have the Primal Rage, but he's totally fine. However, Blade comes through. Jakaru gets onto, or Necros gets onto Jakaru, and Buddy with one swipe, the dash and the swing. And now that should give, oh yeah, the advantage back in this fight to get rid of Natlocks on the point. The copy was committed from Milio, so they do use a lot of ultimates. However, oh yeah, even though they have this rollout here, Moxie, it seems like they can't push through this choke point.
1 minute and 27 seconds remaining. Oh yeah, in control of the objective, going to try to start to lengthen out their distance, be able to contest what Sovereigns have already picked up. Hammermind's going to be there for Chasm. Kaya so close to that pulse bomb. Jakaru already falling exceptionally low. Has to try and dive back to the rest of his team to keep himself alive, as there's the Wrecking Ball mines. Doesn't manage to find the knockdown until just now. Your kids goes down so close to that pulse bomb. The backline going to be safe for the majority of time, but that bot's still not moving any further.
Oh no, Kaya doesn't really know who to look at here. Melio does get Necros. Buddy is gone as well for Sovereign, so 50 seconds left. Pulse Bomb committed. Lands onto Jakaru before he can get that Primal Rage, so he's taken out. And surely, well, Melio does find Isaac on that backside. However, your kids gets taken out. So does Melio. And now with that payload in their control, they could even the scoreline.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, however, they don't have forward spawn, so Isaac is going to take a little bit longer to be able to recommit into this fight, and you can see that that is exactly what Sovereigns are very much aware of. They're looking to engage before the BAP and AMP Matrix come back into this engage.
Yeah, they still have that payload under the control. The robot's still here. Your kid's taking down low. Pulse Bomb committed, doesn't land, but Necros does fall because he used the dash earlier. Now 13 seconds left in the clock. Jakaru has that Primal Rage. Do all yeah commit to the reset, or do they want to fight this? The window's popped. They're committed to fighting this. The Primal Rage comes through to counter that ultimate, so Isaac is gone as well. Coolboy has to commit the Kitsune Rush, but gets slam dunked. However, on the opposite side, Coolboy and Kaya find Milio, and Natlock Chasm finds Buddy, so no more supports for Sovereign. And now it's 3 versus 2 on the point. Your kid's taken down low. Kaya is still here, but he's taken out by Jakaru. Chasm's still trying to find something, but he can't through the bubble. The bubble of Jakaru stops any potential push from yeah, and that's going to be a GG's called early as Sovereign wins 3-1 and moves forward in this lower bracket.
I mean, let's be honest, it was pretty much GG's when Jakaru popped that Primal and isolates both supports away from their team. They make that decision. They're able to find that late pick onto Isaac. They know without forward spawns being online for Oya that they're going to have to take that mid approach to try and get back into the fight as quickly as possible. So Jakaru goes, he scopes it out, he baits the amplification matrix, and then he pops primals that he can keep himself and only himself in the fight. He takes down the Baptiste. He doesn't need any peel from the rest of his team. Everyone else gets to still play that objective. Meanwhile,